I'm so happy to be here. Sir, would you like to speak about your discipline of folk culture? That how
Okay.
did you get inclined towards, understanding and studying and teaching and researching in folk culture? And what do you mean by folk culture studies?
Yeah, that's a big question. It takes the whole life for
Yeah,
me to explain. In any case,
but still,
yeah, but still, in a nutshell, I don't know anything about folk culture when I started, honestly,
okay.
because this discipline in India it's very new.
Yeah,
We have folklore,
yeah,
but not folk culture studies as such. So anthropology was doing folk culture in any case,
yeah.
and folklore literature people were doing lore.
Oh,
So for them, lore is only the expressive genres which are verbal. Culture includes both verbal and non-verbal genres, right? But I did my PhD from IIT on peasant studies.
peasant studies.
Yeah, economic history basically I did peasant studies. So I traveled quite a lot in my villages, like the Rayalaseema area and all. Then what happened during the course of that, I found out that several histories which were not recorded even by the British or the others, right? They were being told about certain incidents and events which we come across in history. And in fact, I was working on this, company period, East India Company period. So 1800 to 1857.
Okay,
And I was working on Rayalaseema, that is the ceded districts then called.
okay,
So, and I hail from those districts, one of those districts.
okay,
So I know that native culture and all.
okay,
And therefore, I was actually roaming in that.
okay,
I found lacuna in the written history.
okay,
The documents which were produced by the British or even otherwise are one-sided, like authoritarian and power-centric and so on and so forth. And therefore the unwritten, oral, is totally ignored or even undermined for that matter. So I thought this is another viewpoint that I should, care for. Then I was from discipline of history, and therefore they did not allow this oral business much.
yeah.
So I collected parallelly the oral ones made into written forms like kaifiyats. It is known as kaifiyats.
Okay,
All villages, their histories were recorded by the local karnams. Karnam means is actually village accountant,
okay,
right? Mostly is a Brahmin, and he writes. And Mackenzie collected all that documents. And when I started looking into those documents, the several things which these oral people, collected from the orality, matches with this document. And therefore, I can always argue, for a historian, argue. So, quoted several kaifiyats in my own thesis. Anyway, that's how I found out that there is a lacuna in histories. Then I joined Telugu University, myself and
which university?
Telugu University.
Telugu University.
Yeah, that is in Srisalam campus I joined. It is known as Potti Sri Ramalu Telugu University, and that's a state university, and meant only for culture and language. And history is part of that. So I joined history, culture and archaeology school as one of the founding faculties of that. Myself and Dr. Kanakadurga, we both joined there, and I was there for 3 years. Then one professor M.L.K. Murthy, who is from Deccan College, archaeologist. He is also interested in this ethno-archaeology and all. And he was our head. He joined little later, but he was our head. Then he came to University of Hyderabad. Then Ford Foundation started running these what is known as workshops on folklore.
Okay,
So I was interested in that, and then we applied. And Professor Murthy also helped us, in forwarding those things and all. So that's how we got into folkloristics. Alan Dundes, Peter Klaas, several, all name any top guy in this field, they were my teachers. So we were there for almost 3 workshops, each one almost like a 20 or then 1 month, things like that. So it was a very intensive kind of course. So So that gave a lot of insights. Then by then we published internationally several articles and all in history. They were all published in Jeshu and all. We got a good name as academicians by then itself. At very young age we published. Anyway, then there was an opportunity to come to University of Hyderabad because Ford Foundation started a department, Center for Folk Culture Studies, and they gave a grant to University of Hyderabad. Then Bhadraraju Krishnamurthy was the Vice Chancellor. And MLK Murthy joined this university, and he was given in charge of this. So he was interested in our work. So we came here as senior fellows, myself and Durga. And that's how the department, the center started. We were the founding members of the center. We started our career here as a senior fellows.
This was like
1991. 1991. 87 was our first appointment, and after 3.5 years, 1991. Then 94 it became a center recognized by the university and all. Like that it went on. So in a nutshell, to say that folk culture is such a vast subject. It encompasses all walks of life, right? It includes music and in history, when you talk about cultural history, they only talk about art and architecture most. And very little about the verbal traditions like music and dance. Only the iconography, wherever it is there, that only they will pick up as the evidences for dance or music because of the instruments. That apart, there is not much of a interest of that. And most of these later period in literature and all, they started collecting the local versions of musical traditions and all. You have in North Gharana tradition. Like in South, you have a different kind of tradition. In Tamil, it is called Sabha tradition. Likewise, whatever the name is, they have some kind of musical traditions run by the Samsthanas, the little kings, it is known as. So they had their own, patronage of this, and some of the material were written, and most of that was Bhakti literature. All that was there, right? But when history we teach that, we don't teach the content of that. We only teach the personalities, proponents, and basics of that. Nothing intensive. But in folk culture, you need to see them as a cultural practice of the life. Right? It's a folk life which actually emulates these, fine arts and performing arts and all sorts of things. Right? So we started mythologies, epics, and different kinds of verbal expressions which are termed as genres. As well, the lifestyle of the people, how they are intimately connected. Right? We can take any stand, like Marxian stand you can take, or any kind of stand you can take. That is a question of interpretation. But that apart, right? So what happens in this whole this thing is that we went in for collecting of this data from these so-called oral communities. It doesn't mean that all cultures remain still as oral. Even the elite has a oral component of culture.
Yes.
And that is most dominating even, right? Even otherwise. We are guided in everyday life by the orality only. All our rituals, beliefs, everything is guided by the orality and a tradition. And therefore you can't exclude what is known as elite and the rural or the urban. These dichotomies are for our convenience we made. But cutting across that, folk culture is interested in collecting all that material which actually has this orality component as a structural feature. Right? Basically, orality is a structural feature and works on a different paradigm than the written. Right? You know that theory, I need not repeat all that. So that's how I got interested in this, and we did a lot of work on mythologies, epics, and different traditions. We collected different things, and then written about different communities like that. So that's how our interest was. Right? Did I answer, or you need more explanation?
I will further try to understand. So what do you mean by folk? Folk. Folk.
Yeah, generally, see, if you go by the epistemology and how the term has come into existence and all, it has its own history, right? And the folklore was coined by Thoms,
Yeah.
right? William Thoms in 1848 and so on. When he was writing to Athenaeum, one journal, he himself is the editor. So he brought out this term called folklore, which was actually hyphenated, Anglo-Saxon word. So folk hyphen lore. And this Anglo-Saxon word was to represent the popular antiquities. Then it was known as popular antiquities. So it has basically, see, one of the issues with our whole academia or academics, whatever you call, is we are still Western oriented
Yeah.
in our lenses as well as in our gazing and all sorts of things, right? That is one of the ways we have to challenge. As an Indian scholar, we need to challenge even that.
I think Professor
Right.
Ganesh Devi also is trying to
These
decolonize
alternate,
the
yes,
entire,
right. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have different words for folklore in Indian language system. Lok Sahit, here, Janpad, and several, So several ways not to pural, like that. Each cultural system, and each one has a different connotation again. So it is again a big issue to crystallize. That's the problem with the Indian language systems, right? So we conveniently borrow the English term so that it is something.
Homogenized,
It is
right.
homogenized, and so that you can communicate with the foreign
Yes.
scholars, and
Yes.
therefore for convenience sake we use that. Right, that's fine. To that extent, it serves the purpose. That's fine. I am not objecting to that. Right, but when actually it is coming to folklore, over two different words combined together, but giving a different meaning called popular antiquities. Basically, popular antiquities mean those left out things by the primitive cultures or the earlier cultures, savage, there, quote and unquote, because then it was evolution theory which was dominating. Right, it's purely evolutionary kind of paradigms that they started using, the social Darwinism and so on and so forth. So in that background, intellectual milieu, savage is one who is left out from the progress of culture. So they are the residues of culture. So whatever they speak about the antiquities, about the old things, that is considered as, suppose in Hyderabad, if I take you to Golconda Fort, there will be several tales told about the Golconda Fort. That is all the orality connected with the fort, right? So that orality is considered as folklore by then. That's how they started developing the whole this thing, right? So that is the background. And fairy tales, all sorts of tales and things like that. Then gradually when this particular term started gaining currency in academics, people started really thinking about it, right? And then they came up with several kinds of theoretic, and so earlier phases it was to define the field of folklore. And the field of folklore, one interesting feature of academics is that the more epistemology you generate, the more terminology you beget, right? It is inevitable kind of. And the more terminology you beget, then ultimately you are getting into what is known as the more explanatory kinds of notes and etc. you are going to create. And therefore, most of the articles are confined to defining the field and terms and so on and so forth. That's how it started. When Allende started coming and telling that it need not be necessarily confined to the rural, the peasant or the savage, it can even be the urban, right? The concept of folk need to be broadened. And how it should be broadened? It can be broadened by telling that any characteristic feature shared by 2 or 3 more people, you call them as folk. So it is such a broader canvas that anything can come under folklore, right? So that's how they started, enlarging the what is known as the field of study, right? And then Benamos and several others came and they said, artistic communication in small communities should be a better term to use as folklore. So it's all, it goes like that. So basically when you ask what is folk, folk has something to do with a commonality, a characteristic feature. Babu, biscuits have now without it.
I just had tea biscuits. No problem. I'm fine.
Thank you. Please have it. You want some water? You want a glass?
I had water.
Right.
Water.
So please have it.
Yeah.
So what exactly happens with folk is that how best you, as a scholar, one uses the term for what purpose. Now it is almost like, the way you use, like tribe, for instance.
Try.
That concept itself is again the Western, right?
Yeah.
And coming from the Greek tradition
Yeah,
and so on and so,
tribals,
yeah,
yeah.
tribals and things like that. That also again, when it's coming to the constitution, the definition keeps changing, and constitutional way of looking at is through characteristics, right? These are 6-7 characteristics, you make them as tribe. Without them, you don't call them as tribe. So it is all becoming again a political kind of, agenda to define or incorporate communities.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the part of the
Yeah,
whole
I
processes, right?
Yes, sir. So you said in the beginning itself, you said folk people are studying in many places folklore, but folk culture is something different.
Yeah.
Studies.
So that's right. So then, what is lore? Okay, folk and lore. When you make these two, lore means what? Expressive traditions. And expressive traditions, can all expressive traditions be lore? Is another question, right? So they have come up with one formula. Only the repeated ones,
Okay.
which has some kind of system,
Okay.
right? Repetition is begets a systemic,
Yeah.
right? A system. So if it is systemic, then you call that as genre, because genre is always goes by some kind of characteristic features,
Yeah.
and they are systemically deployed.
Yeah.
Therefore, you call them as lore. So lore nothing but genres, categories.
Yeah.
You categorize them or type them into different kinds.
Right.
Expressive traditions and non-expressive traditions, make them as lore. So in most of this lore business, in the earlier phases, it was only the verbal genres that were taken as the main concern of study. Through verbal genres, they started constructing who are the folk, right? The characteristics of the folk or identity of the folk is constructed through the verbality. The way I express, you understand me the way I am, right?
Right.
Or the way I wish to be,
Right.
that you want to understand me.
Right.
So it is all like that. In that kind of thing, folklorists started working, and they have neglected largely the non-verbal component. So culture is having both. Culture is having both traditions, customs, all sorts of things, right? So it is not just the speech acts. It is also something to do how the speech acts are emanated because of certain cultural practices. In everyday life, you practice certain things, and therefore your practices are now termed or expressed through language. And therefore, it is not simply the language that is important. Even what constitutes the language is also equally important. This is some.
Some kind of a system of meaning. Yeah.
Exactly. So meaning
Yeah.
generating. How do you generate the meanings?
Yeah.
Meanings always generated, and the semantics, right?
Yeah.
So it has both semiotics, which is something to do with sign system,
Yes.
right? Verbal
Yes.
component, phoneme as a sign, or maybe the lexeme as a sign, whatever it is. So you boil down to that, and then from there you pick up, right, and derive the meanings, right? So it is all the mean making process that the humans survive, right? Without meaning, how do they survive? So they have to have a meaning for every act of their own, be it belief or otherwise, right? So in that so-called, it's like it's like a sphere which is transient and transcendental.
Yeah.
You can't, sometimes you can feel it, sometimes you can't.
Very fluid.
Yeah, it's very fluid. Tangible and intangible, both. It has these both components. So culture has this both,
Yeah.
tangible as well as intangible,
Right.
right? So the tangible fellows say only the iconography, these ones, because you can feel and touch or smell, you take that as component, right? So that is the UNESCO definition of that.
Yeah. No.
Now, then UNESCO started looking intangible also equally important. They came up with another definition.
Yeah, maybe they think of some spirits as the god. So how could it be tangible?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
something as a spirit. As
Spirit,
a god.
yes.
So
It can't be.
Spirit and
So
tangible.
that is exactly. So then the folk culture studies fellows have a lot to say. See, there is something called in Europe folklore is a study, and mostly folklore is used in the European countries
Right.
and the British and the French. And